Okay, so once again, hi everyone, and welcome to InfosecTrain. I hope all of you guys are doing fine. Let me introduce you to the course and the agenda that what we are here for. Now, the thing is, guys, that the agenda for today, that the things that we will be learning are red team kill chain. That how red team kill chain looks like. What are the things that we do? What are the steps and what methodology that we follow in red team? We will look into that. Then we have all the steps here: initial access and delivery, weaponization, command and control, credential dumping, lateral movement, establishing persistence, data exfiltration. So these kinds of things, these are the steps that we follow basically in red team kill chain, and we will be looking into that, right? After that, we will be looking that we will be talking about the overview of red team infrastructure, that how red team infrastructure looks like in an organization. So if we are working in a red team, and if we are a red team engineer, so what are the how your infrastructure looks like, what things you should have in your organization so that your red team assessment looks good and it works fine, right? So those things we'll be looking into, and then we have a very famous framework with the name Metasploit framework. So we will be looking into that as well, right? So that's the agenda for today. But if I tell you about the whole agenda, if someone has not went through the agenda, so the whole agenda is that after this I will be taking you to the deep into the Metasploit framework, that what are the kinds of payloads, and how we use Metasploit framework for different things, for finding out the information or enumeration, or we talk about the exploitation. So how do we exploit? So for making you guys understand that thing, I will be solving a challenge and showing you and making you understand all the steps, that what all steps are there and what all steps we will be covering in that, right? Different methodologies and different things we will be talking into, right? After that, we will be moving on to a very interesting thing, which is active directories. Now, the first thing, we are here for the red team, right? Now basically, guys, there are two sides. If someone is new to the cybersecurity, so there are two sides of cybersecurity, right? We have offensive, which I am into, and we have defensive. Now offensive and defensive, the words that you can see, these words are themselves uh, giving their information, that offensive means where we do the attacking part, right? What we do over here, we attack, and we find out a way inside the company network or company's website. There are lots of things, right? Either you attack the devices in the network, you attack the website, right? So lots of things are there. Now we have defensive side as well. Defensive side, these peoples are called defenders. Like, you might have heard about Windows Defender, right? What it does, it just protects you from the external threats and all the viruses and all. So same like that, defensive people are those people who try to defend the organization, right? Now the red teaming is offensive side, right? This one, why we need red team, why we need our organization to get attacked, why we are hiring peoples from all over the places to just attack the organization, why we are doing that? Because we want, rather than having a 0-day attack or any attack from outsiders, we let our red teamers attack the organization so that they will report us that this was the vulnerability that we exploited, and then we can find out a patch so that our information remains safe. So all the things that we are doing is for the information. We want our information to be safe, right? Now, the thing is that if our information is safe, everything is safe. Now, attackers play different, right? Attackers find out different ways. They don't have anything like someone in the chat wrote that like penetration testing, vulnerability assessment, penetration testing, and all those kinds of things. So, in red teaming, if I tell you, it is a full scope simulated attack that is designed to test the security of a company, right? You can test employees, if the you can do any social engineering attacks, you can test the applications, you can test the physical security. So you are simulating yourself as an real attacker, right? Any adversary. So adversary means like any opponent or anyone who's trying to attack your organization. So the thing is, guys, that when we are talking about the adversaries, they play differently, as I said, and they find out new ways every time. They don't play with the rules, right? When you are doing penetration testing, you play with the rules, right? You have a scope. Do you guys know what is scope? Scope means what things you can test, what things you cannot test, right? So in penetration testing, you have a scope. Always remember this thing, that you have a scope, you play by the rules, you find out vulnerability, you report that, right? But red teaming is different from penetration testing. Red team assessment is different from penetration testing. Red team assessment is full scope. You can test anything you want, you can attack any place you want, right? Why we are doing red team assessments rather than pen testings? Because these red teaming assessments are used by the companies to measure how much or how well they can withstand an attack or real adversary, right? They can, like in red team assessment, we can just reveal multiple attack vectors, we can reveal multiple vulnerabilities that may not be found by performing a pen test, because in pen test again you have a scope, right? Now this, in red teaming, you do something with the name adversary emulation. Not sandboxing, but when you simulate like an adversary. So it is a process in which you will use the tactics, techniques, and procedures that are used by an specific adversary. So we have APT groups. So we have advanced persistent threats. Advanced persistent threats means who have the extraordinary skills, and they just don't do anything. They just try to persist inside your system for a longer period of time. They want to stay inside your system for a longer period of time, right? So those are advanced persistent threats, right? So we will use in red teaming the tactics, techniques, and procedures used by the APT groups, and then we simulate, or you can say emulate as a real attacker, right? So as I'm a red teamer, so I'm while doing a red team assessment, we are being a real attacker, right? So that's the thing, right? Now in this we follow some kill chain methodology, and how we will do the attack, and how we will find out the vulnerabilities. There are certain different steps in that, right? We'll be covering that as well. But adversary emulation, that the agenda or the objective of adversary emulation is that we have to assess our organization's security, that how resilient our organization's security is against any adversary techniques or against any adversaries tactics, right? So we do the red teaming for that. Correct. So what we are doing in there, we have the scope in the pen testing, but in here in red teaming, what we are doing, we are emulating the adversary's behavior, right? One more thing in pen testing, we are only identifying the behavior of the attacks, and we are trying to find out the exploits and vulnerabilities, right? In here, in pen testing, as I have written, identify the exploits and vulnerabilities only. But in red teaming, what we do, we use to assess the resilience of organization against the adversary attacks. So the assessment can be, as you said, that assessment can be for the employees as well, right? It can be for employees. So you can call the employees and try to convince them to share the information. So it can be social engineering attack as well, right? We can do those things in red teaming, right? We can play with the physical security as well. So we don't have scope. We are not only trying to find out only the exploits that are present, the vulnerabilities that are present in a web application or in the network, but we also have employees, we have physical security with us, which we can we can physically try to enter the organization and try to find out more information from there, right? So that can also be a part, right? Now the thing is, guys, that when we are talking about this thing, the reporting, what happens is the time frame. Let's talk about the time frame in the red teaming. When we are talking about the time frame in the red teaming and penetration testing is carried out for around 3 weeks, 4 weeks, kind of thing, right? But red teaming can take longer, right? When you are doing a red team assessment, you are checking every aspect of the organization, that every attack surface where you can attack, it can be mobile, it can be IoT, it can be uh, network, it can be web application, everything you are checking, right? So that's the thing. Now in pen testing, you provide a report of your findings, that what you found, right? How you found and what you found. But in this, in red teaming, you provide results you are providing here as well, but the difference is actionable results you are providing. Those results can be used for the detection, right? So what we do in red teaming, we are emulating the techniques, and then those results are used by the company's blue team to write the signatures for specific malware that you have used, or some payloads that you have used to improve their detection, right? We will the blue team will also implement some security safeguards. They will harden their infrastructure, they will patch all the vulnerabilities, and they will provide their employees. If you, let's say you have used social engineering, and using social engineering you found some information, right? You found some information from that person. So it's not any technology you attacked, it's just a person you convinced to share the information. So for that, the organization will provide trainings to their employees to prevent the social engineering attacks, right? So actionable results will be given, right? So these are some of the differences between red teaming and pen testing. So red team will give you more results, right? It will give you the basic and the better idea that how adversaries can play with the organization, right? Now The thing is that in Red Team, we follow a kill chain, right? The kill chain can be different with the names, but steps are same, right? So what is that kill chain? So let me show you. So can you see this? We have our first step, which is with the name initial reconnaissance, right? So reconnaissance has other name as well, information gathering. So the first phase in red team operation is focused on collecting the information as much as possible, right? We also call it information gathering, we also call it footprinting, right? Same name for one thing, for gathering the information. And it is one of the most critical steps. We can do information gathering using the public tools that are present, like we have Multigo, we have LinkedIn, we have Google, we have Twitter, Facebook, Google Earth. All these things provide you a lot of information, right? And it is possible to get a decent amount of information about the target. Your target can be a person, it can be your technology surroundings, and it can be your environment of your target. Anything it can be, right? So we use something with the name, first thing, that is open source intelligence. So what we have is open source intelligence. It is also a framework which gives you all the information about the target. There are different tools and different websites present over there which will give you the information about lots of your uh, your lots of things about your target, right? Now it will give you information about the person, the organization, its facilities, and its response capabilities as well. Like if I'm sending something, some packet to my target, let's say it's Google. So if I'm sending some information or some packet to my target Google, how it will reply, right? So its response capabilities are also given by the reconnaissance, right? How it's made and how a website is created, which tools are used over there, the security controls, the traffic, many things that will give you, right? Now we split up reconnaissance into two categories on the basis of interaction with the target, right? We have active reconnaissance, we have passive reconnaissance. So active reconnaissance means actively engaging with the target, network or host or employees, anything, but we are engaging with the target, we are communicating with the target, and then we are trying to find out the information, right? Now, when we talk about the passive reconnaissance, so it includes utilizing, we are utilizing publicly available information resources, like we have different search engines. We try to find and identify information about our target domain and the organization, and it does not, we are not actively engaging or interacting with the target or the company are that we are doing the red teaming assessment for. Or if someone is some attacker is trying to attack that organization, so that person is not interacting directly with the company's digital infrastructure, right? So that is active and passive, right? Now how can you find out information? Let me show you some things, right? Now we have different databases present, but first thing, let me show you what we use basically, right? Now what MITRE attack framework is, basically MITRE attack framework give you the tactic, techniques and procedures that are used by the adversaries, right? So as you can read it over here as well, it is a globally accessible knowledge base of adversary tactics techniques based on real world observations, right? Now let me show you some things. We have different techniques and tactics. We have mitigations, right? We have these tactics for enterprise, right? So let's see the enterprise matrix. Now, what it is telling you, it's telling you that these this reconnaissance is the tactic, and these are the techniques: active scanning, gathering victim host information, gather victim identity information, gather victim network information, gather victim organization information, fishing for information, search closed sources, search open technical databases, search open website and domains, search victim owned websites. So all these techniques can be used to find out information, right? We will get back to this MITRE attack framework every time we will move on to the next step in the kill chain, right? So we have different things, right? Now, let's say you have to find out information about uh, infosectrain.com, right? It's also an organization, yeah. So we have to find out some information about the infosec train. So what you can do is you have something with the name whois lookup. So it will give you the whole information about the target, right? A lot of information from the perspective of an attacker. If you will see, guys, lot of information is present over here, right? Now what else you can do? You can go for let's say you are trying to find out some DNS information, right? So what do we have? We have DNS dumpster, right? So if I write over here, let's say tesla.com, everyone knows Tesla, right? It gave you the DNS information. It geolocated the IP as well, and these are the DNS servers and the MX records of your DNS. It's given by, and the A records as well, right? The different domains that Tesla have, right? Now mapping the domains, right? What else you can do? How else you can find out the information about the target? Okay, so now host space the domain name. What it gave me some information, the IP address of my domain name, whatever I have provided, infosectrain.com. It gave me it is handled by this, the google.com, and this as well, the different domains of google.com, right? So that's a good amount of information that we got, right? Host utility you have, right? Now, okay, So harvester is a tool that will help us in doing the email harvesting. Now we have email or username harvesting. So what I have done, guys, I have written this thing, and hyphen D I have used. Hyphen D is for specifying the domain name, and the domain name I have given. Hyphen B is for where to browse. So it will check in Google, LinkedIn, Bing, and Yahoo. Right? If I run this, right? This is something fancy that harvester's banner looks like, and it's searching for results, right? So as you can see, searching Bing, and in Bing it's searching for the results, and in different places it will search for results, right? So wherever it will find some results, it will show it to you, right? So can an attacker use this thing for collecting a lot of information about the target? Yes. While it's searching, let me show you something with the name this Netcraft. So have you guys ever used Netcraft? So as you can see, services and all the things that we have used, right? So let's try this. So it gave me the website infosectrain.com. Now if you will click on here, the site report, right? I will get the report of the website, right? Whatever things are being used. A bit more information about the target, because as I said, this is the most critical step while doing the assessment, because the more information you have about the target, the more you will be able to get inside the target, more easily you will have all the things, right? Secure operating system that was ever created, right? Now you are getting what you are getting: the site, the hosting company where it is, the country as well, the IP address, and the domain name, the name server as well. You are getting the reverse DNS, right? So you are getting the reverse DNS as well. Are you getting the IP address information a lot? Yes, you're getting that. The geolocation you will also get, right? So lots of information you are getting, right? And if I show you that same thing in Weaponizer, if you have used ever, right? So if I write here infosectrain.com, and if I do technology lookup, so it will give me the technology that was used for creating infosectrain.com's website, right? Okay, while it's loading, let's go back. Can you see a lots of information our harvester gave us? What you are getting? You are getting lots of users and lots of people who are working in at infosec train, and lots of names here at infosec train. Are you getting that? Somewhere my name would be there as well. So you're getting a lot of information, right? You're getting who all peoples are working inside infosec train, right? That's also a thing. Now let me show you one last thing which can help an attacker a lot. Have you guys ever used WAF-Woof? WAF-Woof is web application firewall fingerprinting toolkit. It gives you the information about the web application firewall, if there is any web application firewall present, right? It will give you the information. So okay, let me, like someone was talking about offense, the OSCP. So let's go to the website of offensive security, right? So this is one organization, offensive security. Let's copy the URL and let's paste it over here, right? Now let's see what information my WAF gives me. This site, https offensivesecurity.com, is behind Sakari Cloud Proxy web application firewall, right? There is a proxy used, but it gave me the information. Isn't that information useful for an attacker to find out how to bypass this version of a web application firewall? So that is how you find out the information about the target, and that is your information gathering. Now if you are using the websites that we have used to find out the information about the target, was that active or passive information gathering? Because we were not communicating with the target, we were not communicating with the website, we were communicating with the open source information present, right? Now what can be then active? How can you find out the active information then? What things you can use? So we have nmap, right? For port scanning we can do uh, directory brute force, or we can just do the directory enumeration by using dub or gobuster kind of things, right? We can use these tools and we can directly communicate with the target and find out more information about the target, right? It's written in the configuration. We are not interacting with the web application firewall or with the target, so it is passive. Okay, great. Now this was the first step in which you have a lot of things where you can find out a lot of information about the target, right? Next step that we have here is initial compromise. So in this phase, what we do, the information from reconnaissance phase is analyzed to identify and exploit a vulnerability. Or you can also launch a phishing attack that helps in establishing the your connection with the target, right? So the techniques that are used to gain the initial foothold includes the attacks that we have, like if you found any vulnerability, you have some ports open, you have FTP port open, you found any vulnerability in FTP port, you have you are using the older version and you are using, let's say, VSFTPD 2.3.4. So there is a backdoor present for that, right? If you are using other versions, or if there is anonymous FTP login allowed, right? So you can go for that as well. You can just try to connect with the machine. If there is let's say any port open that is looking for connections, any port that is listening, right? A listening port means there is one any service that is just trying to find out any one to connect to it. So you can just directly connect to it using netcat. We have a tool with the name netcat, right? So you can use that as well. So initial compromise, you can use these things. But if you are not using these things, if you are doing phishing attack, you can do that. Or in social engineering attacks, basically we do something with the name spear phishing. The mostly used attack, most used in this red team. when we are talking about spear, so guys, why it's named as spear phishing? Because spear was a weapon. You might have read like in our childhood there were history books, and there were uh, modules related to that, which were about the ancient people used a tool with a weapon which was called spear, which has a sharp stone at the front with bounded on a stick, right? They used to throw that like uh, on a javelin, like that. So they used to throw it through towards the animal, and the animal is hunted down, right? So that is the spear fishing. So it only attacks, or it only hunts down a single animal at a time. So spear fishing means when we are targeting a single individual, right, at a time, right? So this is the most used attack. So what we do in initial compromise: either attacker successfully executes a malicious code, and or using the vulnerability that was found on an internet facing system, or any other means, right? So the attacker ensures that a freshly hacked system remains under his or her control, right? So attacker gains some information, he attacks the target and gets inside the system, right? So that is initial compromise. Now after doing initial compromise, there can be a problem for the attacker that you are only a normal user, you are not the super user, right? So for making changes and for making lots of uh, hectic things inside the target, you should be the root user, right? So super user, or you root user we call it, right? So it can happen that by the end of initial compromise, you end up being a normal user, having less privileges, right? So that is what is your initial compromise, right? Now, after initial compromise, we have something with the name establish foothold. Now we have done the compromise, right? We have uh, like attacked the target, and we have got inside the system. Then why do we need to establish foothold? What do we mean by establishing foothold? We want that our system or our connection to the target should remain for a longer period of time. So what we can do is, guys, when we are trying to maintain the access in that, we will basically put something inside. Like what happens is, let's say you are hacked inside a system. Someone got to know that you hacked into the system, and they got the vulnerability, they patched up, like there, let's say there was the, again, same example, the vulnerability in FTP. They patched up that vulnerability, they upgraded the version of FTP, and done. After that, you will not be able to connect to the machine, right? Now if you are not able to connect to that machine, what will happen, guys? Everything you have started, everything is lost, right? So for that, what we do, we basically maximum times we put a backdoor over there. Apart from that vulnerability, even if that vulnerability is patched up, still you have a way so that you can connect to the target machine, right? So you put a backdoor, right? So you install the backdoor inside the system, so that you will, again, you have the foothold of the target machine, and then you can reconnect anytime you want, right? Either you can create a new user to the target machine, right? If you have those much of privileges, you can do what, you can create a new user by your name, or you can just name it user one, right? You have created a new user one, you have given him some privileges, and now you can log in directly as a normal user, right? So different things you can do. So that is the meaning of establishing foothold. Clear, guys? Okay. Now, as I said, that we will be going to this MITRE attack framework a lot of times for every step, right? So let's check what MITRE attack framework says, right? We have reconnaissance, we have initial access, we have execution, persistence, right? So lots of things are there. Let me just scroll there. Defense evasion, credential access, lateral movement, right? It is, right? So how you will do the compromise, how will you do the exploitation or execution? As I said in starting that the name is different, like drive by compromise, it is initial compromise, right? Initial access or initial compromise. External remote services, phishing, replication through removable media, supply chain compromise, trusted relationship, valid accounts, lots of things you guys can do, right? So that is what is initial compromise, right? And under initial compromise your establishing foothold also gets there, right? It is under your initial compromise, right? So these three steps are done. Main step, if, as I said, if you are a normal user, privilege escalation is most important. So when we are talking about privilege escalation, guys, in this, when we are doing red teaming assessment and we end up getting a normal user, so the red teamer gains more control over the systems and the data, right? Here what we do, we either do the password hash dumping, right? So we have a tool with the name hash dump either, or we can just put a keylogger over there and we can do the key logging, right? So that we can get the credentials, we can leverage the privileges of any application, any, if let's say any application is having root privileges, right? So we can do that, or we can do also, we can attack a weak piece of software, right? So these are the common ways of elevating your privileges, right? So when I'm elevating my privileges from a normal user to a normal user, that is called horizontal privilege escalation, right? When I'm moving from normal user to a root user, it is known as vertical privilege escalation, guys, right? So sometimes in some places, rather than directly going to the root, you may have to sometimes go to the normal user, because you as a user have less privileges and user 2 has some more privileges, right? So you can end up doing that as well. So we have to do privilege escalation. Now let's say we are inside the machine and we are inside the target. So what we can do, that is called like local privilege escalation, right? Because inside the machine we are escalating locally, right? So that is called what? Local privilege escalation. Now local privilege escalation happens when, let's say, one user acquires the system rights of another user, right? That means we are getting privileges to access something that should not be accessible, right? So attackers do what? They use various privilege escalation techniques to access unauthorized resources, right? The compromised credentials, right? So we have, let's say, we got the password hashes, we will crack the hashes and we will get the information and we will escalate our privileges. If you guys have used uh, Linux, if you guys use Linux, so first thing that we log into the Linux, and then we open up the terminal, we start the terminal. Then what we do, we write a command, because it is giving me the privileges of root. This command will ask for the password, and then it will give me the root access. That means it is privilege escalation again, right? So this is what we call privilege escalation. Now again, we have next step, internal reconnaissance. What is internal reconnaissance, guys? It will be active now. No, because you are inside the target, and now you have to find out the information. How you will find out the information? You will communicate with the operating system and you will get the more information. So in this phase, the red teamer will investigate the victim's surrounding to obtain a greater. So here we are trying to find out more information about the target internally, that now we had some IP addresses, we had some emails about the company, but now from inside how that environment looks like, right? Who has the important roles and duties, and the location of sensitive information, where the sensitive information is being stored, so that we can get that information, right? Now it is the process of collecting internal information about the target, right? So that, okay. So first thing, from moving in the network, or finding out the active directories and all. Now let's talk about internal reconnaissance. So I was saying just that uh, the thing is that the attacker who attacked the system landed inside your machine, landed inside the target, has to know where he landed, basically, right? If I'm just traveling in a plane and I landed somewhere, so I will check my GPS location. If I don't know, and I just hopped on a plane and just landed somewhere, anywhere in the world, so I just should know where I landed. So for that, we do internal reconnaissance. First thing, right? We get the environment, we get all the information, that where the sensitive information is being saved, where all the things are being saved, and then I should also know that where I landed in the machine, so that what I will just again find out different ways where I can uh, just do use different techniques, which technique to use to move on to that place where sensitive information is being saved, right? So we can do what? We can do enumeration. You can say gathering information. So we can do host enumeration, we can do network enumeration, we can find out about the networks, about the processes that are running, right? So enumeration means finding out more detailed information about the target. So the target can be host. So all the hosts that are there in the network, you can check what network you are sitting in, what all networks are there, what all processes are running in this system where I am sitting, right? So that again goes under internal reconnaissance. So these much of information we need in internal reconnaissance, right? To step ahead, right? So if I want to move one step further, I need a lot of information from internal reconnaissance, right? Now if I get a good amount of decent amount of information in internal reconnaissance, then I will plan my next move, that where to move next, right? So that is either later movement. Lateral movement consists of the techniques that adversaries or red teamers used to enter and control the systems on the network, right? The other name for lateral movement is, it is a stage like when attacker tries to exploit credentials to perform the attacks, like either escalating privileges again or pass the hash attacks, and finally reaching the final target, like critical systems where keys, data, and in the critical data, the assets are stored, and establish and maintain access to the compromised network, right? So that is lateral movement. We move on to different systems, and we do what we find out the place where your critical things are written and saved, and then we will increase the footprints by compromising the computers, the servers, and the infrastructure components, right? So later movement attacks are performed using the computer features and the tools that are present inside your target, right? If there are some tools present, we will use those tools, and then we will do the lateral movement, because always like you are sitting inside a network, and when you are sitting inside a network, you have some access to other devices as well. You are a part of the network, so you can crawl inside the network and move to this other machine. Either you crawl in or move to the other machine directly, use, or either you use pivoting, or you directly take the remote access of the systems, right? So all these things help you in moving laterally, right? So that is your lateral movement. Then comes again your maintain presence, right? So establishing foothold, right? We have established the foothold. Now why we need then maintaining the presence, or persistence we can also call it. So what we have is, guys, we have established the foothold in the machine that we started with, right? Our target. But now we have laterally moved, and we don't know how many times we have moved, right? It can be directly from one system to other system, and the second system can be your system having the credentials. It can be active directory. But if it's not, if it's a part of active directory, what kind of users are there, and then we move again, and then we again move laterally. So now we are maintaining the presence in place where the credentials are there, where keys are there, where assets are residing, right? So all those places we are maintaining our presence, right? So in this phase we use techniques that keep access to the systems, like if system restarts, or the credentials are changed, or any other interruptions are there, right? So all those interruptions can cut off the excess of ours, right? So our whole hard work will be zero, right, if we haven't done this thing, right? So that's why we use this persistence techniques for making our presence over there in the system. Even if an interruption arrives, we have the other way to connect to that particular place directly, right? So the techniques used for persistence include any access action or configuration changes that let us maintain our foothold on the system, right? Like we are replacing or hijacking the legitimate code, or adding any startup code or anything, right? So all those things goes under maintaining the presence of yours, right? So that is your maintaining presence, right? And the last thing, after maintaining the presence, because let's say you are inside a system, you will think that why to maintain presence over there if we can directly take the data and let's go, right? But why we are maintaining the presence? Because if we don't maintain the presence, the company has the data that keeps on changing, that keeps on increasing. If we get data that is right now available, what will happen if we need some more data about that organization, or some in most critical data arrives to that organization 3 months after this, you will again have to go through the whole process. And then what if the vulnerabilities you have exploited are patched up, right? So for that you maintain the presence over there, right? And then you complete the mission. So complete mission, we achieve our objective, like we get some intellectual property, or like financial data, the knowledge about the mergers, or the acquisitions, or any PII we are getting, right? So in this, like anything that you are identified by is called personally identifiable information. And in this phase we just get the data whatever we are after, and we get that data. And next thing, let me give you the overview of the infrastructure, like how it looks like, right? So this thing that you can see on your screens, guys, this is a penetration testing infrastructure. When we are talking about the penetration testing infrastructure, so what we have here, we have a victim, we have internet, we have a domain, and the team server, right? So why we is it different? Is red team infrastructure different from the pen testing infrastructure or not? And if it is, so why it is different? So this is your red team infrastructure, guys, right? We have victim, we have internet, but we have domains, not a domain, but domains. We have redirectors over here, we have different servers over here. So we are talking about the team server. So here we can see the team servers, the here as well in the penetration testing infrastructure. We have a red team infrastructure, and here we have different servers. So we have C2 server. What is C2? For command and control. And what it does, command and control servers are used, like basically used by everyone, but maximum these are used by the attackers to maintain communication, to send commands to the system, and to your target network that are compromised by your malware, right? So here we have something with the name Cobalt Strike, right? So we are using these servers, yeah, let's say. So this is the thing, right? So team server that you can see is a component of Cobalt Strike. It has Metasploit framework inside, right? And it connects to the database. It manages the Cobalt Strike's features, and multiple people can connect to the team server at one time. And it's also available for Windows and Mac OS, everything, right? So we are, what we do basically, we just use these servers to run our commands, to execute our commands to the target. So the thing is, a redirector is what? A redirector is a system that will work as a proxy for all the traffic from your target network to your team server system, right? So all the traffic that will arrive from your target will be redirected by these redirectors, and these are the proxies. They will stop the data, and then they will forward the data to you, right? Now redirectors do what? They give you the IP diversity, right? Lots of IP addresses. So you may do what? You can configure listeners for interpreters, right? So let's say in this redirector, I have started a listener, right? I'm listening on port 4444, right? So all the connections that will be arriving from the victim to 4444 will be redirected here, right? And this will be redirecting it to the server, right? So that is, those are your redirectors, right? Now we have what, like we have this meter sessions or beacon that we send, they give back the connection. So redirectors are basically proxies. If any uh, incident response team starts working over here in this place, what will happen? They will never reach your team servers. That's why we are using proxies in between. They will change your IPs and they will work as a proxy. So all the things that your incident response team will send, all those will be stopped here. Your main team server will not be detected, right? So these are called redirectors. Every redirector is taking care of every team server. So now that is the difference between penetration testing infrastructure and red team infrastructure. If incident response team starts finding out clues about you here, you will be busted very quickly. Yeah. Here, even if incident response team is trying to find out information about you, whatever they are sending, they will send it to your target, right? Wherever the connection is coming from, and it's stopped by the proxy. It will be stopped by the proxy. So for security of my red team, so that no one can find me out and no one can find out my server, right? That's why we are using this proxy in between. Now the thing is, the setup that we can see in front of us, we have 4 team servers rather than one, right? Here we have one, but here we have 4, right? And has a redirector in front of it to obfuscate the actual team server from the incident responders, right? And this setup is combined with other capabilities as well, right? So it will, this setup will increase the difficulty for the blue team responders to block all the attack infrastructure based on the asset discovery or anything, right? So it provides multiple benefits over a simpler setup, right? You can run individual team servers with customized traffic profiles. You can tailor your protocols, you can tailor your protocol choices, and you can target organizations network baselinings, right? Everything. Now what you have to do is, the basic thing that you have to understand right now right here is, like, it's a very very vast and very big topic, but the thing that you have to understand is why we are using this infrastructure in red team and why red team is better. So why it is better? Because here, if I got to know about your team server, everything is gone, right? If I'm incident responder, the first responder, and I got to know about the attack, and you got uh, I got you, right? You got busted. So you have to change everything. But here in red team, as you can see, even if I try to find you, you just have to change the IP of your proxy. Your proxy will be new, right? So in here, what we do, first thing, what is different from the pen testing infrastructure? We have, we do the segregation over here. Every team server is given a different duty, right? All assets will be or should be segregated by functions, right? And let's say I'm hosting a payload, so payload hosting is done on this, right? So this team server will be just sending payloads, right? Email phishing is done over here, so I'm hosting email phishing in this team server, right? So lots of things. So we are segregating the duties, right? We have redirectors. So redirectors do what? They provide obfuscation, right, for our backend team servers, and it provide us advanced filtering options, and it hampers the blue team investigations, right? So these are the things we were looking into this. And in domains, like we do the categorization part, right? We do a lot of things, but categorization is also necessary. So we do the categorization. So every domain that is used in your attack infrastructure setup, it should be categorized, right? You are simulating an adversary who do not use categorized domains, that can make you fall in the problems. So either you are using pre-categorized things, or you are using homegrown things, right? Like you are creating your own domains, right? So these are the things. So that's why red team infrastructure is different from the pen testing, right? Great. Now what you can do is, there is a website or a search engine that you can say. So write that down. It will just show you that it's for recently expired or dropped domains, right? So it provides search and advanced filtering such as expiration or number of backlinks, number of archives, snapshots, or you can use those expired domains in your places, right? In this red team infrastructure, right? So domain reputation will vary greatly depending on the products your target is using, right? Whatever your target, the products your target is using, you will first find out that information using open source intelligence, and then you will choose the domains, right? So that's how you will choose the domains. What I'm doing here, my payload is sent from this server, right? Sorry, right? My I'm sending my payload and pen testing from this server. I am listening on this server only, right? I'm listening on this device only. Everything whatever I'm doing on this device, right? But in red team assessment, my payload is somewhere else. My other server is sending the payload. Some other server is email for doing the email phishing, right? I'm listening on some other server. So sometimes even if one of my server gets uh, busted, I will have the other servers, and my whole I don't have to change the whole infrastructure. That's the main agenda behind this, right? Like you can say that you are trying to have redundancy, right? That your work, whatever work you are doing, uh, your work is not stopping, right? Here in the pen testing, if your this server gets busted, everything is stopped. But here in red team infrastructure, if your payload server stops, your email phishing can be done, right? And we are listening on some server, so that we can get direct connections from the victim, right? So that's what we are trying to do over here.